Here's an example of something that I was told a long, long time ago by the Canterbury Chess Champion of the day back then. And this player was very wise and very technical. And he told me about, and I've spoken about it before, but it often impresses me upon myself that this player told me a real good snippet of information that actually suits my play very well. And so I'm going to show you this game, and it's about the capture of the knight on h6, bishop h6, before the day of my f5 move, which isn't my move. Before that day that occurred, before I started playing f5, I was wondering, where do I put my knight? I said to him. He said, well, you could play it to knight h6, and then if the bishop takes the knight on h6, then you can play, in that time he said, bishop g7 and f6 and things like that. And that went into the arsenal of not being used at all. But now I find this information very helpful at the board, and it helps me think that if it was good enough for him to think of this idea, and then to operate on the g-file as well for black, which is half open g-file generally, never ever often is it in the French defense a half open, a fully open, or it's never hardly an open g-file. It's often, when gh6 occurs, a half open file. So let's have a look at this game, and I hope you enjoy this session, and I think it's pretty instructive in what he said to me back then, all those years and years and years ago, which is a lot, because I have reached a big age, but I'm not after any chocolate fish. But if anyone says, this is a while ago, by the way, so I didn't intend to say this. So anyway, so that's occurred already. So I've written down a long, long time ago, the then Canterbury Chess Champion said this to me about pawn h6. Okay, so here we go. Let's have a look at this game without further ado, David. Okay, let's have a look at it. Let's run through the moves reasonably quickly until I get to this place, which is now move 8. Where do I put my knight? And so we could hear him saying it, even if we wanted to. Well, move it to knight h6, and it looks a bit sort of not too good, but what else can you do? And it might have been in the Wade variation, because I think it was in the Wade variation. I don't even know if it was the Wade variation, because even the Wade variation, I was coming up with, instead of playing bishop b5 as black and c4, I said, well, why don't I play cd4 first, and then cd4, and then bishop b5, not bishop b5, because then the book goes into c4, but there's probably something wrong with my analysis, but I didn't see any reason why not, and nor did he, for that matter, because I was saying, well, what happens if I just go first cd4, there was no knight d4, and then bishop b5, maybe there was a knight d4, I don't know, and then bishop b5, exchanging off black's light squared bishop for white's. Here's knight h6. And so here, crunchy, crunchy, crunchy bar comes bishop h6, which, by the way, is a bishop, and the knight is what I've been saying of late. I've learnt technically that a knight is worth, what you could say 3.1, 3.2 could do, but a bishop's worth, according to the great computers now, 3.5. So I've just got a wee bit of a... But I've got a damaged pawn structure, haven't I? So Gh6, bishop c6, and I just play Bc6 rather than... And so I want to have these pawns mobile. These pawns here, all these pawns here, I want them to be, especially this one goes, okay? This goes, often this goes, and I have to castle my king. If queen d2, then I play bishop g5, okay? So if queen d2 ever, I've got to play bishop g5 regardless, because otherwise, if I play king up to g7 and that sort of thing, that's not too good. And I've got to watch out for queen h5 check. So black's got things to think about, but white's got this file to think about. And maybe one day this bishop here might be able to appear on this diagonal. And like it looks like it won't, but stay tuned. h3. Well, does this worry black? I don't think so. But by the way, my opponent's not too bad. Quite a reasonable rating. h3 castles. Knight h2. Now I played cd4 as promised. Queen d4 and c5. So now see these pawns, okay? These pawns are not bad for the French defense or whatever it's called. But these pawns aren't very good. So these pawns can start to mobilize, especially with the bishop behind them and that sort of thing. And then it's there, queen d5 with the bishops on c6 sort of thing. After d4, blah, blah, blah. So black is met with queen d2, which is now threatening the important h6 pawn, and I don't really want to sacrifice it. So I played, of course, bishop g5, and this always or often invites the move, which is fair enough, f4. So white's got some primo situation, and I just want to share with you something that I wrote down just before. This is David, putting all your pawns on dark squares, and now my opponent comes around and gobbles up all my pawns with their dark squared bishop. That's just happened in the game. It might be this one. So I could call it this. I put all my pawns on dark squares, or a lot of them. So here comes bishop e7 back here again. Knight f3 and king h8. This is probably the result of the great chess champion from Canterbury Chess Champion a number of years ago, who was pretty primo, and I don't know where he's gone now, whether he still plays chess or not anymore, but he was able to play very, very positional against a lot of players, including myself, and often no one would, like me, would get a look in, frankly. So he's very, very good, and I don't know where he's gone. He probably just got bored of chess or something, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he still plays. So anyway, a3, rook g8. So now all of a sudden there are ideas down this file. We can go here, queen g6. We can go bishop c6. We can go d4 and bishop f3. See, and this knight's pinned. So we can have all these sorts of ideas start to come out like ripening fruit that is ripening. All of a sudden, this position is starting to have some real cool taste to it, and play to it. There's a lot of play in this position for black. It's pretty versatile, is what I'm trying to say, but there's a bit of nutrients in black's position, but black still has to be careful. But now, because the pawn is on f4, it makes it more difficult for the queen to attack h6, doesn't it? So this knight h2 before helped with bishop g5, although upon knight g5, then we just have hg5, and then black has these pawns here and this pawn. Of course, we won't forget you, and these two and this one, okay? So they have all these pawns here, and that then makes a big attacking move. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not looking at it too much. Rook e2. So I can sense, in chess, I can sense my opponent is going, oh, what's going to go on down the diagonal? And what's going to go on down here? Sort of thing. I can sense it. And if we look, white hasn't got any play on any half open or open file, have they? Because there's a pawn in the way. There's a pawn in the way of white's d file. Okay, there's a pawn in the way, which there always is. So white's only got a half open file too. What I'm saying is white's only got a half open file, but that half open file is not as good, I think, in my opinion, as this one here. Because this one's the king, the king, the king, the king, the king. And this one is the pawn on e6 defending this. So I might be making no sense at all, but what I'm trying to say is that I feel this d5 pawn is quite solid, especially with the next move on move 18, bishop c6. Now I feel it's very nicely situated, I'll say. And now, of course, what do I threaten? What does white need to look out for? What's the next move that white has to look out for that wins something? It is, of course, d4, knight moves somewhere. Where? There, or there. Nowhere else, really. And then bishop takes f3. So my opponent saw this. And, of course, after bishop f3, after d4, we'll shot. Okay. Can we shot? No, we can't. We'll just show a mock move then. Okay, we'll just do a mock move here. This is analysis. Okay, now the knight can't move to d1 now because the rook's moved to the half-open d file for white. So now this knight goes back here or here, one or the other. Maybe here's better because it can go here and all this stuff. So I'll just make it sound like I'm a grandmaster. Then there's this move too. There's green d5, which threatens quintate's knight. But there's simply this, bishop f3, and as you would appreciate, this can't capture back because the rook, it's the rook, it's the rook, it's the rook, say no. And now we've got a rook if we want. That's the thing. Well, do we want that rook compared to this bishop? This bishop's looking pretty, and the rooks aren't very good in this position, for white at least, maybe for black as well, but this is a good rook. So anyway, moving backwards, we will move backwards. Oh, no, not that far, David. Rook f2 we'll move to, and we'll go d4. So here, white played rook f2, sensing or seeing that after d4, if the rook wasn't protecting this or something, then this knight isn't really protected if there's not something looking over it. d4, here comes knight d1. Maybe white could play knight e2 to prevent it going, because it's feeling like a little bit like yesterday's game that I played here, showed here for you yesterday. It's feeling a little bit like that. The knight is back on the back rank for white again, and so you might like to have a look at that game because I do go into instruction mode, and that's what this is all about for me. This is what I'm trying to do here. That's why I started this chess channel, So after knight d1, I played queen d5, but of course, and I've got pretty free moves here, like rook up here and rook up here. And what about this bishop? Do I want to do anything with this bishop? Well, maybe I can do what I did yesterday, but I'm also going to look at moving these pawns if I can. So here's queen e2, and so what would you play now? Of course I played, and of course I played, and of course I played queen e4, and I offer my opponent exchange, queen exchange, and this is also has a threat. Other than queen exchange, it has a threat. It opens up the case or the coffin for white again, that if white allows me to capture this queen next move on move 22, if they do something else, like, I don't know, what can they do? I don't know. If they do something else and I get to capture this queen on e2, then again, this knight will be maybe easy to capture because it will be, for free if the rook captures back on e2 sort of thing. Okay, so that said, white, for some reason, I don't think white should do this, but white did, is queen e4, fe4, and that was another position, not this one, where I had my pawns all gobbled up by a dark squared bishop that was a white dark squared bishop, but it didn't eat the g3 pawn, which helped to deliver mate soon thereafter. So that won't be featured, but it's a good game anyway. Of course it is. Knight h2 and e3, rook e2. Okay, and now just bishop h4. So here comes this bishop, because otherwise it's not looking too good to be sitting here looking behind this pawn. So it's coming to some activity. It could come to here and to here, that sort of thing. And these pawns just march, don't they, really? Even though my opponent has the opportunity to take that for an exchange sacrifice. I hope you see what I'm talking about. So knight g4, and now what would you play now? I played the following move, and I think this isn't too bad. I could play h5, but then maybe I get knight f6, but I don't know. The knights, yeah, if I play h5, I don't think it's very good, because it gets knight f6, maybe bishop f6, e f6. That's probably okay. And rook g3 and rook a g8 sort of thing. But I chose here rook g6 because now I'm double protecting this square, and it's only defended once. And I'm also defending the h6 pawn, so I can actually play h5 if I like to, but I might like to bring this rook into play as well, so it can come and look at this square here. See, this square here, or this pawn on g2, is not too healthy. So this situation here caused my opponent, because I've only played like 1 or 2 games today with my coffee, this caused my opponent to now go, right, here you go, I'll sacrifice. So it does. And so it kind of wasn't what I wanted to have occur here. I wanted to do the slow build up, but here comes knight de3, rook e3. Now maybe here is a mistake. I think rook e3 is a mistake, because now h5 is very good. But knight e3 is better, I think. I think knight e3 will be more better. And then my pawns are gone. Okay, I think this is better. I think this is what the computer would give. Now my pawns aren't so good now. I've got good bishops, but white's got this. And I'm sort of looking at what about rook f8. Then you've got rook f1. Okay, but then sort of bishop there, but not really, because c4 just tells it to go away. And then white's got g4 and f5 and e6. All of a sudden, this has sort of turned around a wee bit. But because black was met with rook e3, this is no good. I do think knight e3 looks a lot better. You may wish to deviate or comment if you so wish. h5, knight f6, rook g2 check. I have to be careful a wee bit, but not much. King f1, and now I can win this rook, of course. So this is the thing I see when I'm playing chess, and I'm doing this chess channel. I find moves that are better. Not bishop b5 check. Excuse me. Not bishop g5 check. That's the coffee. But because of king g2 takes the rook and runs away, maybe still get a draw for black, but not really with that knight on f6. But I can just... This is often happening in chess for me, is I see when I'm looking at this that I can see other ways to go, and probably even better. Why didn't I play that? I get often asked, why didn't you play that move instead? Because it's a lot stronger. It wins a whole rook. Like, if we go, where was it now? If I go, where is it? Have I got anything there that I win this rook on a1? I thought I did. But I can just go... why do I... It's looking weird to me. I saw something just before. Rook g2, king f1. I might be just talking out of a... And so, anyway, here's king g1 now, and I just played rook f4 because I'm a little bit worried about these pawns, and I also am threatening maybe bishop f2 check. And so it's not far to go now. Knight h5. Yeah, it's all over now because of this move here, rook g8 check, and king h2. Only move, really. The other moves, there's other moves here, but not really. King h2 and rook f2 checkmate. Okay, thank you very much for your kind donation. That's the old telethon song from a long, long time ago. It shows you how old I am. Bye for now.